I think 23 knockouts. He did a number on him, went back and did a number on him again, this side and side around. So he's got that confidence around him at the minute. He beat Josh Kelly pretty easily as well. Took him apart in 6 rounds, and he's just dismantled everybody who's been put in front of him. So he's going in there with a lot of confidence, even though it's not been at the level that Crawford's been boxing at. But I believe David's a better fighter than Shawn Porter. I've been looking at that fight, and Shawn Porter gave him problems. I mean, I know Crawford got him out of there in the end, but yeah, I mean, David's looked at that fight as well. We watched it together, and I believe that David's a far better fighter than Shawn Porter.
Those are the words of Carl Greaves. And as you heard the man say, that he feels that David Avanesyan is a far better fighter than Shawn Porter. Let me counterpunch. David Avanesyan, Russian fighter, age 34, 29 wins, 17 by KO, 3 losses, 1 draw. Let's break this down with the opposition. He took his second loss by Whaaat Peterson. Okay, unanimous decision. I think Whaaat Peterson, to be fair, was a very underrated boxer. You know, I think Whaaat Peterson beat Danny Garcia. I think they robbed him because Danny Garcia was the bigger draw. You know, they said he ran. He just knew how to box Danny versus, you know, I mean, Errol Spence did the same shit. But then, you know, of course, it's Errol Spence, though, right? Because they both decided to box Danny Garcia besides slug with Danny Garcia. That was Amir Khan's mistake. You have to learn what to do with certain fighters. And both guys done that. Whaaat Peterson, he beat David Avanesyan unanimously. His second loss of his, well, first loss of his career came to the hands of his second fight, Andrei Klimov, right? And, of course, he was a native Russian fighter. All right, well, his third came from Kavaliauskas, Mean Machine. And Mean Machine, of course, has been the guy that unofficially dropped Terrence Crawford. So the question you ask yourself is, what warrants Carl Greaves to feel that Shawn Porter, he is better or a far better fighter than Shawn Porter? And let me tell you guys something about Shawn Porter. Shawn Porter is a guy that I feel that is probably one of the toughest fights for anybody, regardless of who you are, regardless if you're Errol Spence, Keith Thurman, Terrence Crawford, because he's fought them all. Kell Brook, he's fought them all. Win, lose, or draw. And needless to say, he lost to all of them. But here's the deal. These guys have their own legacy. These guys have their own, you know, following and backing and special ability. You know, they have their own attributes. And I think that Carl's saying that. Maybe he's referring to the style David Avanesyan has. You know, another point I want to add, you know, if this was Bomac or Terrence himself, he has to be thrown in that category of Tyson Fury trying to market this fight. You can see where it's coming from, because it's like, well, why would you, you know, Shawn Porter? You're comparing Shawn Porter to David Avanesyan. You know what I mean? But I do feel there's not enough opponents that are in common with, you know, Shawn and David to make a real true distinction of what. That's why it's so important for each and every fighter to fight each and every challenge out there. Why? Because you may assume that you can beat a guy because you've already beaten a guy that's beat that guy. But that doesn't mean that guy isn't going to beat you. because you never know where the next challenge is going to come from. You just don't know that. Okay, until you get into it to see how your style matches that other person's style. Simple. So him saying that, he had his good reason, but I also understand he's also the trainer. So he's supposed to give confidence to David Avanesyan by throwing that angle in there and saying David Avanesyan is a far better fighter than Shawn Porter. At a quick glance, I would say hell to the no. That's not true. But then we don't know how David Avanesyan or how good David Avanesyan will be against Terrence Crawford until they fight. And then you can compare the two fights. But you have to understand those are two different people fighting the same person. But that same person with Terrence Crawford won't fight two of those guys the same. But him saying that he's a better fighter than Shawn Porter, I believe that's just out of pure confidence building from team Avanesyan, coming from his coach, But then it won't be as crazy as people thinks if David Avanesyan gives Terrence Crawford a harder fight than Shawn Porter, because he has a totally different style. And he has shut out guys that were undefeated. Josh Kelly, I think, is his claim to fame. And everybody knows about Mean Machine. He took Josh Kelly out in 6. Mean Machine took him out in 6. So, so he can get exposed. He can crack. I don't look at him as a bum. I don't look at him as a fighter like that at all. I think this fighter is somewhat like a Yordenis Ugas in a sense. Okay, because Yordenis Ugas, he took out guys like Manny Pacquiao, and he dethroned what's his face? I don't even remember his name no more. It's so sad how fighters just kind of leave your conscience after they get defeated, but I forget. But anyway, he was on the undercard of Keith Thurman versus Manny Pacquiao, and Ugas took him out. So Ugas is a guy also with 3 losses. Now he has 4. But he's a very tough and rugged, experienced, underrated boxer. But just because this guy has been beaten by these guys doesn't mean that he's not a good opponent for Terrence Crawford. But Terrence Crawford does need to fight someone, and I think this is a decent fight. I do, but do I think he's a better fighter than Shawn Porter? No, I don't. You know what I mean? Because, I can see why he would say that, but it's hard to argue that. And it's hard for me to say, yeah, I think he is. No, I don't think he is. You know what I mean? I think that's way above the scale of the opposition by itself. Shows you that Shawn Porter, has proven himself battle-wise of taking on these guys. Shawn Porter has a better resume than anyone. The only problem is he hasn't won all these fights. His losses show you that his experience is through the roof. He has the Oscar de la Hoya. He has the Felix Trinidad. He has the Ike Corte experience competition level-wise with those guys. Bars. Why? Because he's fought everybody. And that's exactly what we want to see in each and every division. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think of Carl Greaves saying that his fighter, David Avanesyan, is a better fighter than Shawn Porter. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace!